Everybody thinks cyber attackers won't target them, that they aren't important enough, that their data holds no value, but that simply isn't the case. Your credentials and your data have a monetary value on the black market. You should do everything you can to protect them. This video series has been created to show how easy it can be for bad actors to carry out basic attacks with potentially devastating effects. By putting yourself in the mindset of an attacker, you can learn how to better defend yourself. QR codes are everywhere. In the last week, I've personally used a QR code to board a train, as an entry ticket to an event, to link through from an advertisement to a product website, and to load a menu in a cafe. Because they're used by so many legitimate services, people inherently trust them. But should you trust that image of black and white blocks just because it's somewhere you expect to see it? Let's look at a potential QR code attack in action to show why you should question what you scan before opening your camera app. Picture the scene. You're hungry, you go to a new cafe, there's a sticker on the table which says scan here for menu. Other people in the cafe are scanning and ordering, so you get your phone out, scan your QR code and open a web browser to browse the options. But what if that helpful label wasn't as helpful as it first appeared? What if a bad actor had sat at the table before you and put a sticker of their QR code over the top of the correct one? And let's have a look at what the bad actor could have done prior to us arriving at the cafe. So in this example, I'm actually going to create an impersonation Android application and convince a user to install the application to view the menu in this cafe. I'm going to use MSF Venom to create it here. I'm going to use the Android Meterpreter reverse TCP payload. The L host or local host is the server that I'm running this on, and the L port I'm going to choose here is 4444, and I'm going to create the file in the temp directory and call it install_me.apk. Once the file has been created, I'm going to copy the file to the temp directory on this Kali server, and I'm going to start a HTTP server session in Python so I can actually connect to this from a different computer. Here in a web browser, I'm going to visit that IP address, but I'm actually going to try and test if I can download the file to make sure it's available in that directory. And there we go, we can see visiting that website has prompted me to download that APK file. Now what I'm going to do is create an impersonation menu. I'm just going to use a free template here. Microsoft's as good as any. Doesn't really matter what we pick, just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to go with this bistro menu. I'm going to download it, just open it up in Microsoft Word. Now the only reason I'm really using this is as a shortcut to do this for speed. But if I was a serious bad actor, I'd probably create my own website rather than just using a template like this. But I'm just going to grab an image. Doesn't really have to be clear because I'm actually going to blur this in a second anyway. All I really need is something that looks a little bit like a menu, so that if someone scans it and they visit a website that contains the picture, it makes it seem a little bit more legitimate. So let's just create here in Photoshop an example web page. So there's the bistro menu. I'm just going to actually blur all of the image, actually, just so it looks like there's a reason why you can't view it. I'm going to place a box over the top. I'm just going to fill that with a color. Let's just go with the colors already on the page, make it seem like it's all part of the same branding. Let's just add a message in here. And then let's give a warning. Couple of exclamation marks, make it seem really urgent, and just type a message out. And just resize it to fit. And centralize it. Got a little bit big there, so the text dropped off. Let's just resize that. Alright, fantastic. And I'm just going to save this now as a PNG file. Now I'm just going to add this image into a website. Actually, I have access to a website builder system here. It doesn't really matter what I'm using or why I'm using it. It's just an example of how I can create this website so it's available publicly. There's the image. I'm just going to add a little bit of text over the top now, which is going to be effectively the link to download the file. Again, the text isn't really important. I'm just putting something in there. If I was doing this properly as a bad actor, I'd probably spend a bit more time than I am at the moment. This is just again to show you how easy this can be. Now I'm going to hyperlink that through to the APK file I created earlier. So now we've got a website that links through to our malicious Android application. Okay, I don't need that web server anymore. I'm just going to open up now the social engineering toolkit. I'm going to go with a social engineering attack. And I'm going to go for a QR code generator attack. I'm going to paste in the URL of the website that I just created. It's created the PNG file within this root directory. So now let's just go and get that file. I need to use sudo here to copy out the directory because it's in the root. And I'm just going to put it back into the temp folder just to make it easy for me to access. And then again, let's just spin up that web server in the temp directory so I can just go and grab that file through a web browser. Okay, here it is, and just copy that, and then let's go back into Photoshop, and so here's my graphic. I'm just going to put some text above it as well. Again, if I was doing this properly, I'd spend a bit more time here than I am at the moment. I print it. So now, while we wait for a victim, we just need to set up the listener. So we've set up the application to create a reverse connection from the app back to my server. Now I just need to set the server up so it's able to listen. So I'm just going to go into Metasploit framework. I'm going to use just the standard multi-handler exploit. And the payload is going to be an Android Meterpreter session. I've chosen Android for this just as an example because I had an Android phone lying around to use for demo purposes. Going to set my listening host up and listening port, same as I created in the application earlier, and exploit. Now I just need a victim. Now back to our story. So the user has gone into the cafe, they've scanned. Here we can see on my web server that they've connected and they've downloaded the APK. So I can see that somebody has fallen victim. The user has been prompted to install the application. And as soon as they install it, accept the permissions, and then run the app, we can see a reverse session has been set up with my server. So now I have access to that Android phone, and the user doesn't really have any idea. We can see that it's an Android 12 device here by using sysinfo. Some of the commands that I can run here, things like dump in the contacts. Now this is just an old phone that again I had lying around, there's no contacts on there. If there were, as a bad actor, I can now access all that contact information. I could see where the location of this user is. So with geolocate I get longitude and latitude. I can start a mic recording session there, so it's just created a little WAV file of whatever's happening around the phone. Can dump any SMSs. Again, there's not really going to be anything on here because I've not sent any text messages, but if there were, I'll be able to get extracts of those. Here, if I just go into the help, you can actually see all the commands I've got available to me. I can install further applications, so a good way for me to maintain persistence if the user maybe gets a little bit unsure about why their app hasn't done anything. I can just quickly install another application. I can do things like send SMSs, dump SMSs, dump the call logs. I can play audio files through the system. Within the webcam options here, I can actually take snapshots, or I can actually stream what's happening through the camera phone. Got screenshots, screen shares, and then some file system commands like the ability to find, locate, copy files out. As a nefarious bad actor, I now have a lot of access into this user's phone without them really having any idea. As you can see, by impersonating a process that the user was expecting, in this case scanning a QR code to see a menu, they could be socially engineered into installing a malicious application and granting access to sensitive information on their phone. This user has absolutely no idea at the level of access they've granted, and worst of all, they still haven't seen a menu and are now even hungrier than when they first entered the cafe. But what can you do to protect yourself? Be wary of any QR code in public, even if it's something that is supposed to be there, for example car parks and cafe menus. Check that you're scanning the original and it hasn't had something stuck over the top. This leads on to bullet point 2 here. Can you browse directly to the organisation's homepage and find what you want to, rather than using the QR code? If you receive a QR code in an email, I would be especially cautious. If an organization has your email address, they can send you a normal hyperlink that you can just click on rather than hiding the link within a QR code. Attackers have been using this method for months. They know that savvy end users are now doing their due diligence before opening URLs and emails, but by presenting a QR code instead, they know that not only is it very difficult to see the end URL without visiting the web page, but they have also now taken the attack from a laptop or desktop computer, which is typically protected with antivirus software or an EDR solution, onto a mobile device, which typically has neither. If you do visit a web page and it instructs you to update your browser or install an app to unblur images, never proceed. Legitimate web pages should never prompt you in this way. Blurring images and text is seconds worth of work for an attacker, as I just showed, but for some users it seems to add legitimacy. Always hesitate and double check if you see things blurred out. Instead of downloading an app from a website, download it instead from the Apple or Google stores. Bad actors often don't go to the trouble to get an app published because they know it can be taken down relatively easily. And finally, review any URL before clicking. Review the URL once again once the site loads, and don't download any files or click any further links until you're sure it's legitimate. If in doubt, don't proceed. If something doesn't look right, flag it to the organization or website admins and have them verify it, or raise it to your IT team if this is on a corporate device. Trust your gut. So many victims of cyber fraud and data theft admit that they had suspicions but didn't stop as they were being socially engineered by the bad actors. Remember, the attackers are very good and very skilled and often well trained. They have an answer or a reason for everything, often following crib sheets or workflow diagrams. So take a beat and try to imagine why someone may want you to do what they're asking you to do. By placing yourself in the attacker's mindset, you can better defend yourself.